Welcome to My Hero 360, a community that features the voices of our heroes who bring awareness and advocacy for health conditions.
This video was developed in partnership with the HypoPARAthyroidism Association. Previously on My Hero 360.
I was diagnosed with complex tumors on my thyroid, permanent, lifelong disease that really there is no cure. We've been on Capitol Hill, we've been to the state level, we've been to the regional level. Our mission is really to impact the lives of anybody that's affected by HypoPARA.
Let's talk about the work that has been done to bring a treatment that is specifically indicated for the condition and, as you mentioned, more appropriately targets the root cause of the condition and the problems that it causes. So it was 2024 that the first treatment was approved by the FDA specifically for hypoparathyroidism. It's called pegterapeutide. How would you say this treatment compares to, the conventional treatment that was always available before this? And what are some of the real world kind of patient first experiences that you've heard for people receiving this treatment?
Yeah, it's definitely been a game changer for a lot of people. And again, everything's not perfect for every single person. This hypopara is, whew, it's so different for everybody. And there was tons of excitement around it. There's still tons of excitement around it. But it's a shot a day that people have to take based on whatever their levels are. And it really does help with the parathyroid hormone. And then the calcium kind of, I always say it comes along for the ride. And I'm non-medical, but that's kind of in my mind of how it works, that we get that parathyroid doing what it's supposed to do, then the calcium kind of comes along for the ride. I think the community is very excited about it. And I think that there's, it's kind of like the bell curve. You have your early adapters of the people that are going to jump on board. And then you got the other people that are kind of in the middle going, yeah, okay. So they may have started 6 months later. Now we're kind of getting into a year and a half in, and people are paying attention to what others are, posting on our socials and sharing with each other. So I just think that everybody wants some kind of treatment option. So I think that with the start of Yorvipath, which is the brand name of it, it really has helped get people excited to know that there will be treatment options for people moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And has the treatment allowed people to reduce the volume of the supplementation that they're taking in terms of calcium and potentially other things?
Oh yeah, for sure. People, most people, I should say, that I have seen that have shared have, they kind of just go to the shot. And I think that, a lot of people that are women over 50 are probably taking a little calcium regularly,
Mhm.
whether they're hypopara or not. So they may take a little bit of that, but they're not taking a therapeutic
Mm.
amount of calcium. It's just kind of, what we do as women.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great that there is, an option for people should they choose it, and also that it was the patients who kind of made it happen, right? Kind of got the FDA to see that this could be really impactful for this patient population. You mentioned there are a number of other treatments in the pipeline and, different phases of clinical trials. What can you share about that and maybe your hopes for the future treatment options?
Yeah, it's really, honestly, it's very exciting because again, going back to the 10 years ago, I was like, wow, like, what am I going to do? And I'm not like any other, other patients, I'm sure, are thinking the same thing. But now we look at having a treatment option on the table, and we have several other in the pipeline. I think the biggest thing is they're going to have options. So it's almost like, or we're hopeful, I should say, because it's not FDA approved yet, but we're very hopeful that there's going to be options.
Mhm.
And I think that with any medication, a long-term medication, you know, just like diabetes, like you might start on something, but you end on something 5 years later, and then you go back to the old thing 5 years later. So we never know, but the ability to have that option
Mhm.
is going to be enormous. We're hoping that this year, within 2026, 27, that we can potentially have two other treatment options presented to the FDA.
Mhm.
One of them will be for ADH1 patients to start, which is a genetic form of the hypoparathyroidism. And then the other one is finished its clinical trials, and we're just waiting to hear about that. The other exciting things that are happening is that there's a another treatment option that would only be a once a week injection, which, some people are going to find that very much more interesting than potentially a daily.
Yeah.
And then we also have one that's in the early phases that's a pill form.
Mhm.
Um, so, I think there's lots of excitement on the horizon for what could be. But of course, these things take a really long time. And for a patient, that's tough, right? 10 years is a long time span when you are hoping every single day to feel better and to have a quality of life. So we just, kind of do everything we can to push things along and be a part of what we can do to help make, decisions a little bit easier, bringing the patient voice into it through a listening session that we did early on, through the ELPFDD, through helping industry understand the patient voice so that they can bring it as well.
Mhm. I imagine for you, as an example, when you were diagnosed, and for many other people, it's jarring enough to get this diagnosis, but then to be told, oh, there's actually no specific treatment, indicated for your condition. Like, wow, what does that feel like?
Oh man, that's why it was like, is this a life sentence? Then it became, is this a death sentence? Because there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
And for me personally, going on the standard of care, the conventional therapy to begin with,
Mhm.
gosh, it was hard because it's hard on your stomach.
Yeah.
It's hard on your bones and your muscles and all of that for me. And I hear that from other patients as well. So at one time I described it as I just feel like every day when I wake up, I feel like I'm going to crack. Like my body's just going to crack. It was really tough.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And I think it probably is an added layer where you don't look sick, right? Most of the time,
Oh
right? You
no.
may have a bad day, but you don't look sick. And that's something we hear in these interviews that we do with people who have quote unquote invisible illnesses. Other people around you may not understand that it's impacting your day-to-day life.
Yeah, it's so complicated. And because they named it hypoparathyroidism. It's because it's behind the thyroid, but so
Right.
many people, if you try to, if it, because sometimes you want people to know, not to pity you, but so that they may give you a little grace if
Sure.
maybe you forgot something or, you
Hmm.
know, your hands started cramping up in the middle of the meeting or something like that. You kind of want to know, want people to know, but then on the other hand, it's like, do you really want them to know? So it's hard to, and then you say the word and they're like, oh yeah, I got thyroid issues. And then you're kind of like, oh boy, here we go. Kind of got to explain it again. And
Yeah.
it's not the other person's fault. That's what they know. But sometimes it gets exhausting.
Hmm. Yeah, so it just highlights how important it is, the work that you, your colleagues, the association is doing to advance the education, awareness, and then, advocate for this group as a whole.
Hmm.
And one of the ways you're doing that is you recently launched a podcast called HypoPARA Unscripted. You have the gorgeous logo in your in your square there. the podcast brings together clinicians and also patients living with the condition. So, what do you hope that listeners would get out of these episodes?
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's kind of our next step. We have, like I said, been to the FDA. We have done the conferences, and this is just kind of another layer that we're going to put on top because we needed to cast that net even bigger to reach the clinicians and honestly patients. We've gained a lot of patient followers from the different things that we've done because they didn't know there was a patient advocacy team out there for this rare disease. So it's been really nice to be able to do that and just to share the stories in not such a structured platform like we do a conference. And so being able to share in a less structured platform is great because it is unscripted. So we don't give anybody a script or anything. And Lord knows you'll hear a lot of my same words happening throughout there. I've learned a lot about myself doing this. I've interviewed people my whole entire life. And I find that people are pretty fascinating and listening to their stories. And I thought, what a great platform to be able to just listen in. But at the same time, they can share their stories with the world to
Yes.
be able to really understand HypoPARA just that much more, so that we can touch more clinicians, so they're more willing to look at the treatment options.
Yes.
We can touch more patients to help them feel potentially a little more secure about knowing about their disease, but also being able to understand the treatment options that are coming out. We've had two doctors so far that were just absolutely fantastic. We have patients coming up in the next two episodes. One of a group is a group of three people that became fast friends because of HypoPARA. The other one is a wonderful author of books who, had to put her career a little tiny bit on hold because of this. And I'm really curious and interested to talk to her about how did she do that with the brain fog that we have. How were you able to still continue to be an author
Mhm.
and write these award-winning books
Mhm.
with having hypoparathyroidism?
Yeah. And the brain fog particularly can be debilitating. People think, oh, you just forgot something, but no, it affects your ability to function, at work, in the home, with your family.
Driving a car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people understand that as much as they need to understand that. If you don't mind, I want to elaborate on that a little
Yeah.
bit more. I have
Mhm.
a couple of examples, and one I've shared frequently on different venues here. But the whole driving the car, the things that you normally do on a regular basis. Luckily, I was still remembering to drive the car, but what I couldn't remember was where I was going. I literally was going to a friend's house I've been to 100 times. I had to pull over because I could not bring to my mind where the heck was I and how do I even get there when I drove that path a million times. A lot of times we go on autopilot when we get in there. Your autopilot does not work well when you're hypopara.
Mm.
The other thing that I think is an important point about our quality of life is um, the social um, kind of piece of it. And let me share an example. I went to a graduation. My niece had graduated years ago. And it was early on when I was hypopara, and I was doing a conventional therapy. And during that, there was a high school friend there that their nephew was graduating as well. And I was, we're social media. Oh, let's make sure we get together and I give you a hug, get a picture and all that. And we got there and we saw them and we did a picture. But then it was about 30 minutes later, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, we can't forget, we have to get the picture. And she looked at me, and in that moment, swear and I could cry talking about it now because I felt like I had to cover up,
Mm.
you know, my 50-something-year-old self of this kind of the brain fog that happened in the moment. I had completely forgot that we had already did this whole picture scene. So then I become up with an excuse. Oh yeah, but I kind of wanted to take it over here, and oh yeah, my brother's here now, so let's take it with him.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of like it's just really hard to deal with that kind of stuff in being hypopara, the brain fog and everything. It's really tough. It's tough on you mentally, emotionally. But hopefully with treatment options, people will be feeling a lot better.
Yeah. And you having a platform where people can share their stories, and certainly that's a mission that's close to our heart at My Hero 360. It not only educates people, listening to those two examples you gave, be like, wow, okay, I understand the brain fog now, but also offers community for people who
Hmm.
are dealing with something similar or the same condition and be like, oh, wow, I can totally relate to that. And so I
Yeah.
think that's such a special outlet that you've created for people.
Yeah, and it's important to describe that to your doctor so they understand, because I think that's where we tend to feel dismissed a little bit is when we say, "Oh, we got brain fog." Well, who doesn't lose their glasses, phone, and wallet? I swear I was going to get my husband a rug mat out there before he walks out the door and says glasses, phone, and wallet, and he knows that, so I'm not sharing anything, any little secrets there, but we laugh about it every day because he goes in his head, glasses, phone, and wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can people listen to the podcast and also connect with you and the HypoPARA Association to learn more and maybe get involved?
Yeah, the podcast, it's called HypoPARA Unscripted, and it's on all your favorite platforms. It's hosted through Podbean, but it's shot out to all the different platforms. So you shouldn't have a problem finding it at HypoPARA Unscripted. And then to reach us, please visit our website at hypopara.org. We are under a little bit of construction with it right now. We did a reconstruct about 3 years ago, and we started that process this year. So we're really excited about what it should be coming up to really be able to support the patients. And certainly, you can always reach out to me at pkeating@hypopara.org if you have any questions for me personally.
Awesome. Patty, we like to conclude our My Hero 360 interviews by asking everyone the same question. What would you tell your younger self knowing what you know now?
One of my sayings is always, we'll figure this out. And I've said it so often. I think my son actually says it a lot too, because we will figure it out. And I think sometimes in my younger self, maybe stressing about things and saying that, now I believe it,
Mm,
right? Back then I might not have believed it as much. So I would say believe in myself and
mhm.
my abilities, and that I can get through things. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Well, Patty, thank you so much for sharing about your personal story as well as all the work you are doing as the executive director of the HypoPARA Association. The work you're doing to advance the field of research for hypoparathyroidism and the resources you're offering individuals living with this condition are so important. So we're very grateful to have you here on My Hero 360 today. Thank
Oh
you.
my goodness, you have been such a great, I've loved working with you over the last couple of weeks and so thank you so much for highlighting all the patients.